Flavor.
Yeah, boy!
Hey, yo, check 1, 2. This is Flavor Flav in the building for the Better Agency. Nicholas wants everyone to know how they need to listen to the truth that Nick and Preston are giving them. Flavor Flav shouting y'all out right now. You heard me? So hold it down and keep making it a better agency. Alright?
And welcome to this episode of the Better Podcast. Today we are joined by the VP of Sales and Marketing, Mr. Stephen Mohr. Of course, I'm Nicholas Ayers. He's Preston Schmidley. What's going on, Preston?
What's going on, guys?
I think you're looking pretty good. If you're watching the podcast on YouTube, you're in for a real treat today. If you're only listening to it on one of our many audio channels, whether it's Spotify, Stitcher, or the like, then you're missing out on Preston's awesome Lightspeed Voice shirt that he's rocking. You guys got probably some of the best swag in the game, Stephen.
We do. We had some old school stuff. Preston's actually got the old school stuff. We recently revamped kind of the whole brand and colors and all that. So you kind of see I got my bright stuff here. So yeah, man, we definitely don't want to blend in. We want to, especially if you're at a trade show and a conference and you're walking by, we want you to make sure you see our colors.
The new stuff's good.
More than that, I mean, you guys don't blend in when it comes to, I think, your involvement in our space and in our industry. You guys have really, planted your flag. And I would say, there's lots of VoIP providers in the world, right? But there's nobody who's catering to the insurance marketplace like Lightspeed Voice does. There's nobody who cares about the insurance marketplace or the insurance industry like Lightspeed Voice. Tell us your story of how you got involved with Lightspeed Voice and how you got involved in the insurance world in general.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty long, winding road, but I was an agency owner several years back, more than I'd like to admit. But then, after I kind of got over that grind, I got into the technology space and went to work selling an agency management system, which was called eAgent. Did good enough at that where Allstate.
For all you Allstate folks out there, you know exactly what eAgent is.
Totally. So. Allstate went ahead and bought eAgent, and then I went along with the acquisition to Allstate. So shortly after that, as Lightspeed Voice was kind of growing within the Allstate world, and then eAgent came into play, we went ahead and integrated, which just kind of furthered obviously both, and got to know Brad throughout the years. And after 7 years in Allstate corporate land, I decided I would take this leap, and Lightspeed Voice really encompasses a lot of what I've learned and been doing for the past several years, and then really opened up a lot of opportunities. And I always kind of say the ironic piece of it is that me coming from Allstate to Lightspeed Voice, my main focus was really getting us more into this independent space and really broadening the horizons there for a lot of reasons. But obviously makes a lot of business sense, and just the group of folks is more expansive.
So you went with eAgent to Allstate.
Yeah, so I managed the deployment across the country.
Good to know Allstate's involved in human trafficking.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was it's been a great run. Brad's family has been in the insurance agency business for several years. His dad's a State Farm agent, his brother's an independent agent. And, wow. It's just a great industry. And at the time, going back a few years, it was really underserved with the technology. There's definitely a lot more going on in there. But, I always kind of say, as you mentioned, there's a lot of VoIP providers out there. I mean, if you always look, feature by feature, how a product looks versus how the products look, I mean, you've got those big guys. Why would anybody else like us exist, right? I mean, they've just got, in some cases, $1 billion behind them, and we continue to onboard.
Well, Stephen, you mentioned VoIP providers. Who are some of your favorite VoIP providers?
I have one favorite. It's Lightspeed Voice.
No, yeah. That's true. But those other providers, they don't do they don't care one iota about our industry. They don't care about the agency owner. They don't care about the business. They don't care about the customer. All they care about is their corporation, right? And so what Lightspeed Voice is able to do, it's able to kind of carve out that spot where, you guys are a true partner. I think that's one thing we're always looking for as agency owners is we're always looking for partners, people that can help us grow our business. Is there a major difference? Because I know Lightspeed Voice caters to both the independent world, which is where Preston and I probably have the most, have our feet in, right?
Yep.
And then you guys also work with the captive world.
Yep.
Is there a major difference that you have been able to notice between working with independent agents and captive agents, and just in those spaces?
So I think the biggest thing is the captive agents are fed information, right? They're provided maybe a list of people that they can work with, or a certain number of systems they can work with. And then a lot of times those systems are limited, right? So there's a lot of stuff we can do with independents that some of the captives would limit us from doing. So
from a corporate perspective?
What's that?
From a corporate perspective, you mean like?
Yeah, so
like
corporate
compliance?
security, sharing of information, data, et cetera. Call recordings tend to be a hot button. So what we find in the independent space is that information is harder to come by, right? So, you've got obviously a bunch of associations, organizations out there that provide the information, but it's still more of a, you have to go find it, right? There's not, you don't have a gateway to just jump on and find all the information. So that's really the big thing. One of the first shows I did when I joined Lightspeed was about a year and a half ago. I started having these, real detailed conversations about our system. And I kind of saw the blank stares, and I was like, oh, you do know what VoIP is, right? And they were like, no, I don't even know what VoIP is. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it really just showed 18 months ago, even.
I bet.
There's just a lack of knowledge and information. So it's just, you just got to start from the ground and build up. So
and I know you and I have talked about this previously, and we migrated my insurance agency over to Lightspeed Voice about a little over a month ago, and that was great. And then I have yet to migrate the marketing agency over to Lightspeed Voice, because we have phones there, and I'm sure you'd celebrate. I had to call Ring Central the other day, and it took me a little over an hour to get a human being, which is always infuriating. And that's never happened with Lightspeed Voice. So kudos to you, and I'm excited to be all on the system.
Yeah, totally. So, and when we talk about how can Lightspeed Voice exist in this huge world of Verizon, Comcast, and all these other players, and certainly the service is one aspect of it. We're based down in Southwest Florida. The people you're calling are all there. We're there all day, every day, 12 hours a day waiting to answer. So that, integrations are the other piece that I'm sure we'll touch on quite a bit, but the service, the integrations, and then just that focus on this space is really the secret sauce for us.
Well, I think too, it's been cool to see as a new Lightspeed Voice user myself. I switched over to Lightspeed Voice when the integration with Better Agency happened. Me and Preston just felt like it was the right thing to do.
Yep.
If we're gonna talk about this great integration, we should also be there. And we've been thrilled. But you guys have recently, and I think by the time this episode rolls out, people will have a lot more access to it. Your brand new platform, and so you guys have been able to kind of take the user feedback. You guys haven't just wanted to just sit and rest on what you have, but you've wanted to continuously improve the product and make it a product that is better and can do and compete with all the things that all those other providers say they want to do, but you can do it for insurance agents. You can make it industry specific. Talk to us about the new rollout of the Lightspeed Voice product.
Yeah, it's definitely a long time in the making, but it's a 100% revamp of the product basically. So we're in beta now with about 30 agencies on it, and we're looking to go live really the weekend of October 2nd. It'll be kind of out there for all to consume, and it's a more modern interface. We were behind at times a little bit on some drag and drop functionality, being able to transfer calls that way. We've provided some leaderboards to see call activity within the agency, and then we do provide some sales automation. So we had two products. We had our phone product and then a product called the follow-up tool that were on two separate platforms. We're now combining those in. But one of the things that, as you talk about the Better Agency and that partnership and how we integrate with other systems, we do offer just that core phone product, right? And I always kind of say we're a great phone company that offers sales automation and some other things. And that's such a critical piece to it, because there are a lot of other providers out there that are starting to try and do everything, right? You've got your phones, you got your full CRM, your full AMS, et cetera. And they
And they're
kind
just
of
not as good, by the way. But go ahead.
they kind of, the phones are the afterthought, right? We're going to do all this stuff. And oh, by the way, we have VoIP. Typically that's with a third party, right? Maybe it's on Amazon Web Services, or it's a white label deal. So you have no control over the call quality. You're totally reliant on other people, where Lightspeed Voice owns all of our infrastructure. We have data centers in Atlanta and Seattle that we can go and look at, touch, fix, improve, enhance, etc. So that's really something that we pride ourselves on. We own every aspect of the product from a technology standpoint.
I just got an email that everything had switched over to the Georgia servers because the Seattle one just got looted. So sorry.
But talk about why that's important. Why, if I'm an agency owner, why do I care about that? Why is that important to me?
Call quality, number one, right? You can have the best system in the world, but if a customer calls you and you can't hear each other, or there's a delay, or it's staticky, the whole rest of the system is worthless. So that allows us to control call quality. If you're on Amazon Web Services, you're there with millions of other things. We've got our product that's on our servers, and we never have quality issues, but if there are, we can fix them like now.
Well, one thing I experienced previously, and this is before I was on Lightspeed Voice, but this is one of the things I found kind of interesting is, this was on internet, but it made me realize the importance of quality, because quality kind of has two dimensions. There's how good can it be, and how often is it good? Those are two separate questions, right? A lot of people think call quality means it's just better. Well, that's not necessarily true, because I have good quality, but if it's inconsistent, that's also another thing that doesn't get brought up. It's not just on a scale of 0 to 100. It's on a scale of 0 to 100, and then depending on the time of day, it's like that. So the 0 to 100 is constantly fluctuating.
Yeah, there might be another provider that at their best has better quality, right? But that best happens, between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m.
Yeah, it's you have a better chance of seeing the meteor and the Hale-Bopp comet, flying over the sky.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that was important to me, where it kind of opened my eyes to, 'cause it's easy to hear that and be like, oh, well, what does that even mean, call quality? Don't they all have calls and they're all at least legible? It's like, yeah, I mean, there's a spectrum to what call quality really is.
Yeah, and we get calls, every day from folks on the big guys, Ring Central, 8x8, et cetera, and it's just like they just, finally had it. They're done with drop calls or bad service, and we kind of take it from there.
There's one thing that I think is universal. Whenever, so for context, many people who watch or listen to this know my involvement with IAOA. And so in the Facebook group for IAOA, it's once a week, if not more, where the topic of VoIP is brought up, and people want to know VoIP, or Lightspeed Voice. And the one thing that is synonymous every single time, Lightspeed Voice, it's like a word association game, Lightspeed Voice, and the first thing people think about is the service. Lightspeed Voice, service. Lightspeed Voice, service. The customer service that you guys have to help people get onboarded, to get numbers ported over. And then also, I think there's a missing thing that a lot of people don't think about off the top of their head, is your willingness to work within the other things that they're using already, whether it's better agency or better agency or better agency. Your ability to work with them.
Goes back to the integrations piece, and we do our best to integrate with everybody that will integrate with us, is really what it comes down to. And for those that are maybe not as familiar, the things that you're going to get with the integrations are an inbound screen pop. So call comes in, whichever better agency screen you have up, that will pop up with the customer in front of you. And then when the call is completed, you get a note added with the length of the call, who answered it, and then a link to the recorded call. Huge. I mean, just that aspect of it. And just one other thing, as I'm thinking about it, and call recording, something that as you go back to owning our own infrastructure, a lot of these other providers end up either having to charge extra for the call recordings, or if you reach a certain amount, the charge goes up, whatever the case may be. We're not paying anyone else for storage. So
Right.
that's
Yeah, and I can attest to this. You know, I've had to go in and listen to calls, and so the better thing about, you know, Lightspeed Voice with Better Agency is I can go right into the customer file. I can click on the link for the recording. I can listen to the inbound and outbound calls, and it's perfect. It's not some, and there are other systems that do that, but you've got to have 12 different logins. You've got to access this Citrix server or this, you know, something and do it in some sort of intranet.
Citrix server. Steve's having Vietnam flashbacks of his time at Allstate.
exactly.
It's clunky, it's complicated, but you guys make it. You guys.
Well, and Nick, you had mentioned three integrations of Lightspeed Voice, and I got to say, the one of those three that you had just mentioned that I liked the most was Better Agency. So.
No, but I mean, on that note, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that with the integration that you guys are doing inside of Better Agency, they're going to be really, really cool. And I think I think it's completely different. We know it's completely different than what is available anywhere else, because that's part and partial to the fact of what Better Agency is doing. But talk about what the first iteration is, and then talk about where the integration is going. Because I think you can articulate that really well.
Yeah, totally. So we mentioned the screen pop, insertion of the note, call recording, and then the outbound click to dial. Those are kind of the table stakes, right? Those are things we'll do, you know, with pretty much all the systems out there, assuming they can also do the same, right? There are systems that don't have that capability. We did start on the texting piece. So that was, you know, there's some challenges there and some folks that are maybe listening, maybe have experienced some of them, but they're, you know, it's just something that takes some time to get the numbers ported. But we did get the ability to utilize the number with us within Better Agency for texting. So that's a big step. Some of the stuff that we want to start working on is going to be pushing some performance metrics from the phone side into Better Agency. So, you know, they've already got some great analytics, some great metrics. We're just going to add the phone piece to it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then, you know, there's some more stuff down the road that, you know, the ultimate goal is to have you in Better Agency, rocking and rolling. Anything you would expect from the communication side is going to be handled. And that's kind of the deal.
The way that I envision, I know we've had hours of calls on this, you know, obviously, because we're kind of in a way steering the same ship, right? There's a huge unified mission between the two of us, because we both solve different parts of the same problem for the agency owner, right? Or for the agents as a whole. And I think the part that for me is most exciting is as this continues to evolve. I mean, it's already really cool, and I think out of every, you know, whether it's as an agency owner or as an insurance agency owner, or as, you know, a marketer, or as, you know, a chief product officer of a software company, there's not many teams that I enjoy the entire team of more than Lightspeed Voice. And I mean that with full sincerity. Like, you know, I feel like I can hop on and it's just kind of joking and having fun with all
we can be real at the end of the day.
Right. But in addition to just having fun and shits and giggles, it's like, it's cool because we're unified towards the goal. And one of the things that I think is really cool is, as I envision this going down the road, 90 days, 120, 150 days, right? And going into 2021, is I really see this unified experience almost being like a cockpit for an insurance agent, where they're just in, and the CRM, the VOIP, everything they need. The system is for all intents and purposes, once that headset goes on, it's bolted on, right? It's like, it is one and the same. This human machine experience is really collaborating to create just such a heightened experience for the agent. I get stoked about that.
Yeah, no, it's very eloquently said, and I'll just let that simmer, because that was awesome.
Let me ask you your thoughts on a couple of things that are hot topics when it comes to things that people always ask about or want. And I want you to kind of dispel some myths, or kind of bring some truth or some light to some subjects, if you don't mind.
Totally.
So one thing that people talk about when you talk about phones, you talk about automation, you talk about this, that, or the other, with communication platforms, people will go, well, does it have ringless voicemails?
Yep.
Talk about that, and talk about why it's probably not going to be legal, and if it's legal now, it's not going to be legal for long, or why it's actually problematic, and why you guys stay away from that.
Yeah, we're pretty conservative when it comes to compliance, and it's you know, just to kind of clarify, we have voicemail drop, right? So when somebody answers and it's getting ready to beep, you hit a button, it'll drop the.
But just blindly sending out voicemails to people.
Yeah, but the other aspect which you're kind of referring to is really just, you're on your cell phone and all of a sudden you get an indicator that says you have a voicemail, and it's, a ringless voicemail from somebody. And it's just something that, there's a lot of compliance questions. I think there's 2 companies out there that are advertising it.
You think it's going to be illegal for long?
I can't imagine it is. I mean, if you think about, how strict texting is, and that's just a couple words, and now you can just drop minutes of voice theoretically. I think truthfully, and again, I'm certainly not a, managing a high performance type of sales, machine, right? We do it the old fashioned way in a lot of ways through automation, of course. But for myself as a consumer, I don't really want it, right? That's kind of the deal. If you get it, phone rings, you can choose to answer it or not, but to just have this thing kind of dropped in there is.
Yeah, I don't understand the fascination with it. I did it for a while, and I never saw real positive results from it. It's a feature that people, I think agents get they romanticize a little bit, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a numbers game, right? And that's a lot of insurance agencies are numbers driven.
But there's
right?
a lot of things that you can do other than that. Let me ask you another one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're dropping texts, emails, and phone calls, why do you need the voicemail, right? Because you're already conceding that you're not going to talk to them.
Right.
You're saying, I'm giving up on actually speaking with them, and I'm just going to leave them a voicemail and hope. And that's easy, right? If you're if cold calling and even warm calling or cross-selling was easy, everyone would do it, kind of deal. So
let me give you another one. The predictive dialer that dials 4 or 5 or 10 numbers out at once, and it will then connect you to a live person.
Yeah, and again, it kind of goes back to the same consumer experience, right? So again, you can ask some people to say it's compliant. We believe it's not in most cases, and that may just be because we're conservative about it. But
again, going back being conservative will a lot of times keep you out of the court of law.
Totally.
I think one thing too. Sorry, go Steve.
As you say, from the consumer experience piece of it, you pick up a call, there's a pause, you're hanging up, right? And if you're on a predictive multi-line dialer, there's a pause. I mean, there is. And even if it's 2 seconds, your first reaction, if you've taken the step to do it, you're like, oh, it's an automated call, hang up the phone and move on. So you got the clients and we're driven by the customer experience, which in our case is typically the agency force.
Well, I think there's an expansion that's required from, because we're able to talk at this because this is our life every day. We should probably reduce that down a little bit. You have, in both of those cases, there's actually 2 different things, right? You have, and I'd like to kind of have you discuss the deviation between the 2 here. I think it'd be good. First is you have ringless voicemail versus voicemail drop, which is a similar concept but different in execution. And then in the dialer realm, you have an auto dialer, and then you have a power dialer, right? Why don't you expand on those 2 differences? Because there's, from my understanding, there's a morality and an ethical and a compliance difference, and then there's also a functionality difference.
Totally, yeah. So we do have, there's a dialer, 100%. You can load a list in there. You can get that list from wherever you need, and you hit start calling, and it'll call the first number. Call ends. You hit a button. It calls the next one. The benefit again is that you're literally taking the time, that hoping somebody answers the phone and you're there to speak, as opposed to, you got 4 lines ringing. Oh, all of a sudden someone picks up, so your phone, notifies you, and then you're picking up and like, oh, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm so glad you answered. Now you sound flustered. This way.
So the functionality differences on the auto dialer, it's saving the agent the dialing time, right? Because you're going through a list structure. It's auto dialing. You're not having to hit the 10 keys every time and do that. So it's saving you about half of the time probably. You just have to sit through the ring. And the difference would be on a power dialer. It's dialing 4 people, and the first one to pick up might not be only one, right? So you could potentially be hanging up on people that picked up just because they were by microseconds, not the first.
Yeah, 2 people pick up, then one of them's holding. At the end
right. And so from that standpoint, it's not the auto dialer that is the more or less ethical or compliant concern. It's the power dialer. Yeah.
Yep. Multi-line power. Totally. Yep.
Yeah, and so I think just the ability that you guys have even thought that through, because when I first started talking to you guys, those are questions.
Oh, no, totally, yeah.
Do we have that? And I'm sure those are questions that other agents have for you, and you have to explain to them, like, look, guys, You can sign up for other things that do that, but you're putting your neck on the line from a compliance standpoint.
Yeah, and there's times, we've had the conversations with folks, and they're like, "Well, if you guys don't do that, I'm going to go with X." And I'm like, "Okay, we'll talk to you in 6 months."
Well, and the unfortunate part is, McBilly and I at Good Vibes Squad, we have to take all this stuff very seriously because we build the marketing and everything for over 100 loan officers, in our marketing agency, and we have to bear the burden that, like, I take it that we have a fiduciary responsibility to our clients to take into consideration the fact that TCPA doesn't give a shit if we built it or they built it. They're going to fine all of us.
Totally.
And the agent who's like, well, I just hired them to do it. Why am I fine? Well, you hired them, right? And so it's like there's this thing where the responsibility still bears on the shoulders of the agent. So if the agent goes, well, if you're not going to do it, I'll go where somebody else will. The TCPA suit at the end of the day is still yours. You're the one that's going to have to bear that. Yep. And that is I think that's something that doesn't get taken into account because we're in this realm of marketing where it's like, faster, more, feature. And it's like, yes, but is that legal? And is that the ethical thing to do? And I think that part of the conversation, the liability of when that goes wrong, gets left out too often because people are focused on the sexy feature, not exactly what happens when it goes sideways.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's, automation is obviously biggest thing right now. I mean, everything's trying to automate, but you've still got to have that human connection at some point. I think in this independent space, I mean, are there people out there doing it without it? Sure. And they're the true numbers grinders, but I think that customer experience and the relationship, things are going to go in cycles. People are going to like the automation and everything's touchless, et cetera. And then they're going to, man, I really miss people. So let's get back to people.
Right. Well, I mean, the technology needs to be what allows you to communicate with people easier. If you're looking at any and all automation as simply a replacement function for you, if you think I'm going to turn on this, and I'm going to be able to just sit on my couch and eat Cheerios all day and make money and just only leave my house to go cash my checks. That's a fallacy. The automation, the technology, all that stuff needs to make your life easier to do the sales, to talk to people, to talk to more people, to have better conversations with people, and to sell more people. At the end of the day, it still requires you to look at somebody and say, do you want to buy X? Yes. And then onboard. There's always that human element that I think it's lost in all of this. And, people are just like, well, I'm going to automate this. I'm going to automate that. I'm going to automate this. I'm going to automate that. I'm going to automate this. And at the end of the day, your business suffers because you've lost touch with the people that actually give you money.
Yeah, I'll channel my corporate self and say, you want to automate the low impact menial tasks so that you can free yourself up to do the more important relationship type of stuff.
Right. It's the same thing I always talk about, when we talk to people about marketing in different ways, there's branding and there's direct response. And when I tell people you should have a lot of branding out there, you should have a lot of branding because you want to make it to when you go into the Starbucks or to get your groceries or whatever, and people go, you're that guy. Yes. And then that opens the door. It makes the conversation easier. Right. It enhances the conversations you're already having. When people are comparing you to X or to Z, because your brand is stronger, they're able to do that. And that's what automation does. Automation is only there to give you the more touch points. So we talk to agents and they're like, you ask them, well, before Better Agency, how many times were you communicating with your clients throughout the year? None. One. Now they're communicating with them 9, 12, 15 times throughout the year. And they shouldn't be amazed when their retention goes up. As we had one person on the show recently, went from 95% retention to 98% retention.
On both are great numbers, agency. But to gain 3 points when you're already that high is pretty amazing.
Well, to do it over the course of a multi-million-dollar book of business is also that's
in less than a year too. Yeah, and I think so that's one of the things that on consulting calls when agents will hire us to do that. One of the things that comes up a lot is we get obsessed with automation, but we don't. I think it's one of those things where people get focused on the feature, not the benefit, right? And it's we're no different than the consumers. We need to kind of remember we're all humans and we all fall prey to that. And so it's like if we were to pull it back a minute, it's like, well, what are we trying to solve? automation
Yep.
by itself without a direction to go in is kind of a useless thing. We're just getting caught up on the feature, not the benefit, right? And so, you know, when we look at that, it's like, what are we trying to solve? Well, if the goal is more sales, then talk to people. That is consistent, tried and true. That's will always be that way. Can it be automated? Sure. Will it be as good? Never. No. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but until it, like artificial intelligence and machine learning can actually become sentient and understand, you know, dialogue and communication.
And you see it in any, and it's not just the insurance industry. You see it everywhere else in your life.
Well, right. And if there's one time that it needs to not be automated and it needs to slow down to go real time, it's that human connection. It's when the person picks up and goes, hello. That's the moment you go, you know, real time, 1X, you build rapport. Right. And that happens all the time is people get so caught up in this, and we love automation, but it's so critical to understand what's the line and where do I not try to, you know, what's the sacred temple in my business? And it's that human to human.
It was kind of one of my favorite stories to tell, just to make fun of other people. is,
Which we love to do, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, artificial intelligence obviously is like the hot topic, and machine learning, et cetera. And there's obviously a tremendous amount of value in all aspects of the world, right?
Yeah.
So I was actually at InsurTech Connect last year, and I'll leave the names out to protect the innocent, but you know, the biggest
Guilty. They're guilty. Just say the names. They're
the
guilty.
biggest sales CRM company in the world was up there
Okay.
pitching, you know, some enhancements, and they have Einstein in their product. And I was really intrigued, and I'm like, I'm going to go to this breakout session and check it out. And we get in there, and it was like, they went through this whole 30-minute dog and pony show, and they get to the end and they're like, look, Einstein says that if you add auto pay to this customer, they're 22% more likely to renew.
When did Salesforce get Einstein?
Yeah. So I was like, really? Like that was the big, like, multi-million-dollar investment to come up with the fact that if somebody's on auto pay, they're more likely to be retained.
There's a term that I like to use when I reference people, and that is, and you see this in culture and entertainment mainly, but it's the educated idiot.
Yeah.
We have become educated, and I would say we've done this in the insurance world, is we've become educated idiots.
Yep.
I've been guilty of it. Not as much as Preston. He's really been guilty of it, but being an educated idiot where we get so far in the weeds that we forget what we're doing, and our head is in the clouds on all these different things. Well, does my VoIP provider do this? It doesn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Does my CRM do this? You wouldn't use it if it did. Like, let's just focus on what makes us money, and that is the customers that we serve.
You know, going back to eAgent back in those days, we said no a lot to feature requests, you know, and I'm sure that's something, I know you guys are going through it right now, right? You're getting requests all day.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that. We don't say no, and we don't say yes. We find out how to. We counter ask how. Sure. That's it's you know it's it's about finding out, because I think a lot of times feature requests that you have that initial desire to say no to, it's generally a poorly worded question. Totally. You can tell it's somebody that's floundering for a solution, but they don't know what to ask.
Yeah, what are they trying to solve for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but if you would have looked, you know, at the eAgent system, you would have been like, how is Allstate even paying for this, you know? But it did what it was supposed to do. It did it well, and it didn't have any, you know, all the unnecessary fluff in there, you know? So, and that, you know, similar story, but yeah, it's just do what you're good at, and try not to do too much for too many people, you know? And you guys, I think you guys have a real solid vision of where you're going, and that's the key. Have the vision, live into it with the agency partners. I think that's another critical part. The agency partners, you know, you guys obviously embody that, and certainly we do as well. You know, we love it. Any conversations we get into, you know, we've got some of our toughest critics on this beta in our platform, and you know, beat us up.
Bless you.
Yeah.
It's easy in those moments too, man, because we have some mutual people that I think they're very vocal. They're very vocal when they love things, and they're very, very vocal when it's critical. And it's easy in the moment to be like, damn it. But at the same time, it's like, if the goal is to grow and the goal, like I've kind of reached a point in my life where it's like, tell me what you think I'm doing wrong. Tell me how I could be better. Like you kind of have to submit to that process. If it's like, if the goal is really to reach a threshold of greatness, it's like you can either be romanticize who you think you are today and who, what the product is, or you can kind of go, all right, bring it, good, bad, and ugly. Bring it.
I'm guessing you guys aren't, if you had said, what are you going to have in your system 3 months ago? It's not what's in there, right? It's not better or
But
worse.
we're also grateful. It's like there's things that come up where it's like,
Okay.
that wasn't the direction we thought we'd go. Mainly because we didn't think that's where people would want to go. When we started this off, it was a very the intent for us, because we're marketers, right? We like to market and we like to sell, and the goal was it was going to be very sales and marketing driven, and it still is. However, it's like people saw how we were solving sales problems, and they went, "What if you could solve service problems in a similar way?" And we were like, that's not a bad idea. I didn't think about that, but if that's the solution you need, let's go. And we did. And it was wide arms. And it's like, now people love the sales stuff, but like we have plenty of people that come in and go, I was able to get rid of my ticketing system, or I was, it's like, we start to see how these other problems start to go away. And it's like, we didn't plan to go here completely, but I'm glad we're here,? And so I think that's the cool thing about it is, as other agency owners ourselves, we just kind of look at it like, we're kind of on the same roller coaster, you know what I mean? And so we have to make sure that this gets us to a safe place. And we want to make sure that it doesn't just drive off the tracks, because it's like, we're all on this, and so that's kind of cool. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're so responsive to the feedback and stuff, because, we've all used apps. I'm sure you even do, you're not an agency owner right now, but running a business, you have to use programs, right? And it's, there's plenty of programs where when you're in them, you're like, this was written by a developer. Like, they don't even understand our problems, like you just get that vibe. And it's really important for us. It's like, obviously we value very heavily our developers, but it's so important that when an agent gets into the platform, they look at it and go, I feel heard. You know what I mean?
And I think that's something you guys do really, really well at. That's a major reason. While there's other national and global carriers that provide service, there's a reason why people elect to go with Lightspeed Voice, and that's because they know that if they do, you're going to hear them, you're going to listen to them,
Yep,
and you're going to help them. You're going to be that true partner in their business.
Yeah, and a lot of times we'll reach out for it, right? Like if we want to do something, we'll post something out there. Hey, we just need 10 people to bounce something off real quick. We don't want to put it, in the public space for whoever,
Sure.
but and the awesome thing with our customers is we'll get 30 people responding right away, right? I mean, they're just eager to help out, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's a really good spot to be in.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to ask is, and then this is Lightspeed Voice aside, if you could, let's say there's an agent who, they're not very tech heavy. Maybe they don't have a VoIP. Maybe they don't have a CRM, maybe all they have is an AMS, and they only have that because they were told that they have to have it, and because they quote unquote need access to downloads. Right. So I want you to imagine an agency owner in that situation, potentially. Because I feel like anybody above that can also benefit from this, but that's a very important person I like to speak to, because I want to pull them up and I want to help them out. What would you say to somebody who only has an AMS? They don't really know what they're doing, that, they haven't really walked through a vendor hall through innovation or something like that. They don't even know what's really out there. What would you say to somebody in that situation about just some tactical wisdom and knowledge that they could do to improve their agency?
Give us the pearls, Steve. We want
Yeah.
the
So
pearls.
if we're talking philosophical stuff, I would say find an agency that you want to be like, right? Find something that you're striving for or looking to go towards.
Mm-hmm.
Engage them, right? Because the one thing that I'm just constantly amazed by is how willing insurance agencies are comfortable sharing their processes with each other. You guys are literally all competitors, right? Maybe some are different states in some cases, but literally competing with each other. However, so willing to share the information and the knowledge, right?
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way. It's nice.
Yeah. So I would just say that reach out to folks you want to be like, get into associations, et cetera. And then when you do start digging into tools, don't buy the first thing you see, right? I mean, it's just like anything in life. Look at some different solutions, There's going to be a lot of people saying they can solve all your problems. That's probably not the case. Find people that integrate and work with others, again, in the agency force, and then also in the technology space, right? There are technology vendors out there that will not and don't like sharing and discussing, and there are a lot that do. And you know, it's very obvious. You can have a 5-minute conversation with people and figure that out. But yeah, talk to people, find information, look. There's no, you know, obviously phones. I always kind of say that one nice thing about phones is that everybody needs them. The only thing that sucks about that is that everybody already has them for the most part.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're always competing, right? And you know, you just got to stay in the game, keep your knowledge.
Well, that's similar to insurance. So, I mean, that's a similar struggle to the people that you serve. You know, everybody has insurance. So I think that there's a, I mean, even in that, you know, your guys' sales process is similar to an insurance agent. So, I mean, that's, you know, I think that's worth noting. That's good. So the wisdom would be find an agent that you would strive to be, and essentially develop a mentor, and mentor is a loose term. It could be a 10-minute phone call or a lifelong friendship, but develop some sort of mentor-mentee relationship. Find somebody that you look up to and connect with them, learn from them, and put the work in to become better. Find platforms that you think could solve some problems, and platform is a loose term, you know, but identify your problems and seek solutions, and don't just buy the first thing that you orbit around. Really.
Unless it's Lightspeed Voice.
Yeah.
What's that?
Unless it's Lightspeed Voice, then you buy it.
Yeah, that one's. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. No, but I think you can have a conversation with our folks, and like I said, in that 5 minutes, you're going to feel way more comfortable than you are with some of the others. And the other aspect of reaching out, you know, the insurance business it's not easy, right? I mean, it's simple. You know, there's some processes you can put in place and kind of work through and have a reasonable amount of success, but it's not easy. So having that support group around you is critical. You're going to have bad days.
Yeah.
Even I know monster agents that have incredible goals and huge payrolls, and, you know, they're still grinding out, stressing out on a monthly basis, and they look to others for that.
More money, more problems, man.
Totally. So yeah, just find that group for sure.
Well, Stephen, we want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Better Podcast. We love bringing on people who have like vision, like character, want to see our industry move forward in a way that we know we want to see it move forward. And so we're so fortunate to be able to partner with the folks at Lightspeed Voice, because they are truly making a difference in the lives of agency owners and agents across the country, both in the independent space and the captive space. So if you're an agency owner, if you're somebody who's looking for more ways to streamline the communication in your agency, then you've got to check out Lightspeed Voice. You have to get on board with them, because they're really for you. They're somebody that wants to see you win, and they want to see you win just as badly as you do. So make sure you check them out. See, where can they find more information about you or just about Lightspeed Voice? What's the next step for them?
Yeah, easiest spot's going to be obviously lightspeedvoice.com. Plenty of information out there, little contact us form, etc.
Do they do a demo, or do they just do a contact? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a contact form. We reach out because there's so much complexity involved with the phones, you know, as far as some companies just use extensions, some have direct dial. So we really need to have that conversation. Obviously, sales@lightspeedvoice.com, you know, we'll certainly reach out to you. And then I'm always happy to have conversations. It's SMOHR@lightspeedvoice.com. If you're just kind of, you know, wanting to reach out before you kind of get into a full deep dive, I'm happy to help. If you have general questions, you know, I have people reach out to me quite a bit on the whole captive versus independent thing, right? People that are kind of looking because I've got that background in both.
Yeah, you have great wisdom and insight on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm always happy to have those conversations. Yeah, and it's phone number wise, we're pretty easy. It's 877-97-VOICE. So 877-97-VOICE.
97-VOICE. So again, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the Better Podcast, and looking forward to the many years ahead of us where we're going to do some awesome things together to solve some major problems. So,
good deal.
From Nicholas Ayers,
Preston Schmidley,
we want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Better Podcast. Make sure you subscribe. Go back and listen and watch previous episodes, whether it's on YouTube or any one of our distribution channels, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Better Podcast. Take care.
See you, friends.